to the Wing Wag. I'm your host, Jack O'Lynn. I'm an instrument-rated pilot and the owner of an aviation company and flight school here in Central Florida.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not guaranteed to be accurate or complete. While we research each topic, we are humans and occasionally make mistakes. For the most up-to-date information on regulations, check out the official Federal Aviation Regulations, also known as the FARs, or consult an aviation attorney. Lastly, the opinions expressed on this podcast are the guest's opinions and are not necessarily the opinions of the host or podcast. Welcome to this week's episode. I'm joined again by my brother Matthew, and we were going to talk about how to best choose a flight school, but something was brought to our attention that I felt like we just couldn't stay silent on any longer. As you can imagine, this has to do with the rise of the Santa apologist movement that we've been seeing a lot recently online and out in the world. It's a well-accepted fact that Santa is responsible for our Christmas gifts, but where I think the Santa apologists, or the full-flighters, as I like to call them, where I think they take it too far is in claiming that Santa Claus flies by himself around the world delivering presents, again, by himself, to every single child. That's just absurd. As aviators ourselves, we at least going in, we thought this is impossible. There's no way one man could do this. And we wanted to prove it wrong, prove that there must be some other theory. Santa has field offices around the world that help him deliver, and that it couldn't possibly be the flight. So, Matthew, why did we think this flight was impossible?
Well, I mean, there's many facets of this. The first, well, we got to dig into all of it, eventually ending up in power. But first, you got to measure speed or measure distance, right? How far it's going to take. And obviously, it's a hard, almost like graph theory problem about connecting all the dots. So it's hard to, you do have to do some hand waving.
Sure.
Here, but like I said, I kind of did a little example. North Pole, I just took a small subset of Oceania, Australia, New Zealand, North Pole, to deliver to Australia, then New Zealand, about 25,000 kilometers.
Okay.
It's a lot of distance. So, I mean, and that's only per 0.3% of the population. So, if you take the time of night, which we'll talk about in a bit, he has about 4.8 minutes to do those entire two countries. So that's just a little bit. That's a lot of distance. So we can get a bit into the speed here. But if we extrapolate that out, right? We can use that data point 0.3 and extrapolate that out. We're looking at a speed at around 300,000 kilometers an hour, which is ridiculous. Our initial thought was that's just ridiculous.
Faster than any known aircraft. Fighter jet, SR-71, literally like up there with the fastest objects.
Yeah. So it's just, that as a human, when you read that, you're just immediately, that's not possible. And that's not really that doesn't account for some other factors as well. So it is a little unbelievable.
That's right. And then let's also consider just the sheer number of stops you would have to make in this night flight. So let's say that the Earth's population is around 8 billion. I saw some stats online that the average household size for the world is about 4. So that gives us 2 billion households around the whole world. And being generous, maybe 50% of them have children. So you're looking at 1 billion households with children. So that's 1 billion stops that Santa would have to do.
Yeah. Yep.
And like we can define night, like Matthew was saying, but let's just say night is 12 hours. You're looking at 23,000 stops per second. So not only is it that high speed Matthew mentioned, but we're talking accelerations and decelerations into and out of each stop. Mm-hmm. Just massive performance requirements.
Yeah, in that distance, the speed accounted for it's just our initial stance was that's just ridiculous. It's impossible to overcome out of a couple of things, but that one in its own. Kind of the next thing also talk about is weight. Mm-hmm. Right? If you guys don't know, your average, 747, 77 cargo variant, 800i, 747 can just peak out around 1 million pounds.
Okay.
So we're going to do some very hand-wavy math. There's about 2 billion kids. There's about 1 billion households with kids, about 2 billion kids. And if we assume because presents can be as small as, a pair of AirPods to as big as like which is right there, a peloton. The weight's we're going to vary about 2 kilograms a kid. We'll convert it later. So if we carry this out, we're at about 4 billion kilograms, about 4 million tons. All right, so it's kind of a lot. And to put it in perspective, the biggest ship on Earth, the Sea-Wise Giant, biggest cargo ship, most mass-carrying cargo ship, carries about 0.5 million tons. So, we're looking at an eighth of what Santa has to do.
You're saying that big ship is 1/8
of what Santa has to do in one night.
Okay.
So that weight, that's astronomical too. And to put it in perspective, I'm going to do some quick conversion here.
Yeah.
So if we do 4 billion, I don't even know how.
9 zeros.
Yeah, we're looking at somewhere on the order of 8 billion and some change pounds. Right.
Okay.
So average, the biggest cargo carrying aircraft are right around that 1 million pound range. We're pushing it. We're pushing the limit of what can be plausible for how these presents are ending up in our house. I don't know if I can buy it. I don't know. That was my mindset going into this. I just can't buy it.
Yeah.
Can't buy it.
And like outside of performance constraints, one thing I just thought of, Santa would have to solve the traveling salesman problem, right? He starts and ends at the North Pole and needs to hit all of the stops. And to do that the most efficiently possible, Santa is either solving the traveling salesman problem or he has a very good approximation to it.
Yeah.
Both of which would be, I did not know Santa had that kind of computational power.
Yeah,
Maybe he does.
Like, there's a chance he's using that to somehow and some fun to fund his venture. You never know.
That's true. And then there's other factors, right? This time of year is known for having IMC conditions, severe icing. He's doing the whole thing at night. So that's just a recipe for bad aeronautical decision making.
Especially in the winter, especially when you get that North Atlantic, you get some very heavy northeast winds that can really ground just about anything. So,
Yeah. And then also, is he clearing customs at every country? Border control? Are they inspecting the presence every time he enters and exits a country? What is he doing about houses that don't have a chimney? Does that slow him down?
And one of the biggest things too, in like my deep dive in this, I've consulted many experts. Fuel is obviously a huge concern here.
True.
Right. I mean, we're in these big cargo carrying aircraft. If we're going to be in that realm of cargo carrying, we've got to look at fuel consumption. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds per hour for these big jets. Obviously, people look at the reindeer, and the reindeer each reindeer is 1 horsepower. They're not putting out that power that would be needed to carry that weight. And, their fuel, you have to do the math and break down into calories because they eat food, unlike a jet, which is jet fuel powered, JP1. But, I have it up here. But in the 2003 biopic of Buddy the Elf, they make it very apparently clear that the reindeer technology, it might have worked back in the day when human population was much lower numbers, but for 2025 numbers, 8 billion, 9 billion human beings, it just doesn't cut it anymore. So, he actually has some sort of engine on the bottom of the sleigh. Very top secret, even I'm on the NORAD website, even they're not sure about full specs. In that documentary, they mentioned that it's 500 reindeer power, but we believe that's a very low estimate due to the fact that, like, when the military introduced F-71, they're like, oh, it's Mach 1 plus. Like,
That's right.
Obviously it's more. But we do know from that film that it is powered by belief. We're not sure if human belief allows some sort of fission. We're not really sure. It's very, very locked down. I don't know if it's in conjunction with governments, but we have to wrestle with that. How are we fueling this craft? So we have just stated the facts of what we know nowadays in 2025, how that craft is powered. And that was in 2003.
Yeah. So. And one thing I will say, like, we can say for sure that the output seems to be directly proportional to cheer. Like, there's that scene in the biopic where the louder the crowd sings, the faster the sleigh goes.
Yeah, so, it's actually, there's been some very scary reports of very secular areas of the world where Santa's coming, but it's a little delayed. Like normally, right, midnight is when you kind of wait for it, but these kids are 4 or 5 a.m. and Santa's coming. It's getting cheers down. So it's.
People also do leave reindeer food in the yard, so it's almost like aerial refueling.
Well, that's. I mean, I said the reindeer. That movie kind of established. Nowadays, the reindeer are more of a navigational side of the film. Right? Rudolph, especially, he is the main navigator.
Yeah.
Without him, they're just not making it, especially through those northeast storms. So it's very important that we understand the reindeer are in a navigational capacity nowadays. Their flying abilities, while great, limit Santa to his speed, and so upgrades have been made. It's very clear that the science is out.
Yeah. So at this point, there's a long list of reasons why this flight should be impossible. That fuel one in particular, as Matthew showed, maybe isn't as big of a factor as previously thought, given the new technology. But if we even discount that, the rest of the factors were too big to ignore. At least that's what we thought. Because we were making a critical error here, right? We're assuming that Santa flies exactly like we do, that Santa experiences the world exactly like we do, that Santa is one of us. But that may not be the case.
Yeah, and there are some real, first of all, like even some real based in our Newtonian physics world, as we know it, there are some real reasons that can be debunked. We talk about the speed first. It's 300,000 kilometers an hour. That seems unsurmountable. We have made things that have gone that fast. Our Helios 2 probe went that fast. And it was, it's space, it's gravity.
True.
It's using the sun's gravity. We have the Earth's gravity here. We're not quite sure what technology. It's very obvious he has some propulsion technology that we don't have yet. So we don't know his gravity harnessing technology yet. We're not 100% sure, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Humans have gone, and humans in the Apollo mission have gone to similar speeds. So that one that's where I really started first questioning my innate belief of no way this is possible. Is okay, with 1960s, 70s technology, we've made things go this fast.
Yeah.
2025, and Santa has an army of people working for him. Imagine how much more advanced SpaceX would be if they didn't have to pay their employees, and that's effectively what Santa has.
Yeah.
So you got to wonder about that with the elves.
And also, real quick, when you're talking about using the sun's gravity, who's not to say that's not what Santa's doing? So the flight does not need to begin at sunset on Christmas Eve. That's just when the package drops need to begin.
Yeah, that's very true.
He could go out into space a couple of days earlier, do a pass around the sun, and then come back into Earth incredibly fast.
That's very true. The thought that he can't do an orbital insertion with a gravity slingshot, it is possible. So we have to think, because we now can do that. So we have to think about that. And that's really where I first started questioning. And then the weight, I really had to just think about it for a bit, because obviously we see metric tons. But nowadays, when our military is bombing missions overseas and stuff, they do not carry all their fuel weight with them. They aerial refuel. And Santa, as I said, has an army of workers under him. These elves are, we think of this cute little elves in the North Pole doing woodwork, but it's 2025. Most of them are probably pretty advanced aerospace engineers. They probably have a very advanced system. There's probably a whole logistical base, that they can use. If Starlink has all these satellites in orbit, it's not crazy to think that Santa might have some sort of aerial gift exchange system. We're not quite sure how it works. But one of my thoughts here is, I've done that. I told you 4 billion tons. That's a ton. But according to NORAD, we're now clocking at 60,000 pounds. So obviously NORAD has some data. Obviously Santa does not make this apparent, but NORAD has some radar data that insists that in flight he is not weighing those 4 billion kilograms.
So wait, NORAD is saying that he weighs 60,000 when he's in flight?
Yeah, so we really have to wrestle with the fact that that's a known fact. Yeah. So he probably has some sort of overarching logistics structure that's allowed him to do that. I mean, it's not crazy to think the U.S. has that he also has that.
That's right.
Right?
Well, think about Amazon. Does Amazon load all of their gifts onto one single Amazon truck? No, they have a distribution center. They have a distribution system set up, and they go and they pick up gifts from the centers and deliver them to the local houses.
Very true. Very true.
We also, one key error we made, we were assuming that night was 12 hours, the average nighttime. but that's the case only locally in one location. We completely ignored the fact that there are time zones, in that, as any airline pilot will tell you, you can extend night by flying east to west. And maybe this is why Santa chose the North Pole, but one thing that's very convenient about that location is you have access to all of the time zones. And so you can pick which one you want to start at. So if Santa picks his route optimally and he starts just, what would that be? Just west of the international date line, and begins delivering presents westbound, he would have the average length of night, we'll say 12 hours, plus an additional hour for every time zone that he passes. That gives us 36 hours of night, 3 times our initial estimate.
And I've pulled up COVID, right? First Christmas of COVID, that was Santa's record because he didn't have to deal with any airspace. It was all closed. So his record in COVID, I have his radar pulled up here. We have it registered that he very much did that from the Dateline westbound route. And also we have to mount in winter. Many people, a decent percentage of people, live very in northern latitudes that their night is much longer than our night. So he can take advantage of that as well. So he's 36 hours base night. But then for like all the people that live in like Siberia, Alaska, Canada, all these northern latitude countries, all the Slavic countries, all that, they experience, or Nordic countries, they experience so much more night. Santa can use that to his benefit and still deliver in that night, that all those numbers we've recently talked about, realistically, you can probably cut into a third, a fourth even, because he's not just delivering to one time zone, he's delivering the world, and he can take advantage of that circular Earth to do that.
That's right. That's a good point about the having more nighttime at the higher latitudes. So that, like, he could get a head start, like before technically sunset on Christmas Eve. He could go see if there were any houses at northern latitudes where the kids went to bed early and get a head start. And likewise, if someone's sleeping in Christmas morning at a high latitude, he could sneak in the presents at 8, 9 a.m. after sunrise at most places in the world.
And it's known, NORAD also lets us know that's true. Right, we have a lot of F-22s based in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, as well as Anchorage in Alaska. So realistically, in Anchorage, those F-22s see those intercepts at the later or early hours of the morning. So they can tell he is using that benefit if there's more darkness at those higher latitudes.
Okay.
So, I mean, as I said, it's very interesting. The NORAD tells us the jet fighters they use. For the northern latitudes, it's usually Canada. They have their CF-18, which is an F-18, but for them. We have our F-22s at the southern altitudes. So we're able to nowadays, very accurately radar track them the whole time.
Does Santa file a flight plan?
It's not how we think of a flight plan. However, he does, how do I say this? Because he's not a member of like when SpaceX wants to do a flight, they have to get permission from the FAA to do a flight. Just, when Santa does his flight, because he's a sovereign citizen, he does not ask for permission. That being said, he does inform the, I got this from a few different government websites. He does inform, the powers that be of his route of flight and any changes that might happen that day, just to keep any international tensions to a minimum.
Sure. And also I was thinking, so when a famous person flies, a lot of times they request to have their ADS-B hidden. Mm-hmm. And so I'm guessing he does have ADS-B just to avoid emergencies. Yeah. But at the same time, it is for sure hidden. It is not available publicly.
Well, the NORAD Santa tracker, you can.
That's radar.
Yeah, we radar track him. I'm not 100% sure because I've never been in. He's a very high altitude flyer when he's over the ocean and stuff. So I've never seen him on a personal ADS-B scope. Okay. So one can only assume maybe he uses it selectively depending on the airspace.
Sure.
It's hard.
So while we were doing research, I reached out to a couple of these Santa apologists, these full flighters, try to get a quote, see if they'd come on. but they were hesitant. But one nice Santa apologist actually sent me a handful of firsthand accounts to go through, and this is, I think, what really like put me over the edge, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And from being a flight denier to what might call a full flighter.
Yeah.
So I'll just go through a couple, like a selection of them. So this is from a 1939 article called "Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer."
Go ahead and read it. The first-hand accounts, it's bread and butter. You go.
So we were concerned, like Matthew had mentioned, that the reindeer are primarily used for navigation at this point and not so much propulsion. And earlier I had said that the VFR, the IMC conditions and the icing could be an issue, but this has already come up. In this article, it says that then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, "Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" So Santa has faced IMC at the North Pole on Christmas Eve before.
Yeah.
But the whatever this reindeer has, like this ability, the ability of this reindeer's nose to glow so bright, is able to penetrate apparently any IMC conditions.
I think that red nose, a lot of people think it's just a light. I think it's got to be a radome. Like he's able to. He's having precision greater than like a Cat 2 ILS. So there's got to be some radar or some ground-based system in there. It's something else. And we see that original text, that article was written in 1949. 39? There we go. So, we've made leaps and bounds better progress in navigation. We can only assume Santa has better than what we have. So something to think about.
That's right. I also suspect that maybe it's the nose, maybe it's another part. There's some sort of heating element that's able to dissipate icing.
Yeah, I mean
at any flight level. Here's another. This is actually a really great first-hand account. I think this is taken from a biography, maybe, but it's from 1979, and it's called "Grandpa Got Run Over by a Reindeer."
Tragic story.
It tells. It tells the story of a woman who got drunk at a Christmas Eve party and decided to leave early and go back home. And let me just read you this excerpt. This excerpt says, "When they found her Christmas morning at the scene of the attack,
what'd they find?
There were hoof prints on her forehead and incriminating claws marks on her back."
That's brutal.
So, like, you can understand like a child like misseeing what he thinks is Santa out of a bedroom window, but it doesn't get more.
Yeah, it's first
How
time
can you
count.
mistake this? There's hoof prints on her back and claws mark. No, there's hoof prints on her forehead and claws marks on her back. This is clearly an encounter with Santa.
Yeah, and unless Santa Santa is a saint, so unless we think he just was out there to just hurt that one lady,
No.
it's very clear. I mean, it could be anyone that he has to be doing this flight over the whole world.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just,
what I actually think happened here was not that it was an attack, but as any pilot knows, if you go into an active like movement area at an airport, like the runway, you're putting yourself in danger. And on Christmas Eve, the roofs are the primary landing spots, but just like any good pilot, Santa has alternatives if the roof is too steep, and so the roads could become active movement areas.
like unless you have a real heated house, icing can be a real issue.
Yeah.
And roads are salted; they usually don't have ice. If your yard or roof, ice, snow, too short, and he's having a heavy load, and he doesn't have the room he has for landing, he might have to use the road. I don't want to be like a victim blamer, but it's kind of on her. On Christmas Eve, you have to know there are movement areas for Santa that you shouldn't be in. So like that just a side note, I can't really put that one on Santa.
Right.
He was probably on an ILS he has no forward visibility.
Yeah.
You know?
That could be why they tell children to go to bed before midnight, just to lower that risk so they won't be playing outside.
I've heard in some of these Hispanic countries, they have a lot higher Santa incidents because of that fact. They stay up during midnight, and you just can't have people on the streets when Santa's trying to land, possibly ILS approaches into your road.
That's true. I have just a couple more. So this is from a 1952 journal entry. It's a little bit racy.
Yeah, it is.
So this is about a child who wakes up to a noise early Christmas morning, comes down the stairs, and she sees this. I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus underneath the mistletoe last night. And then later on, she goes on to say, I saw mommy tickle Santa Claus. She's seeing this man up close. I'm not sure what to make of what Santa is doing. The only thing I can say is that probably the mom surprised him.
Yeah, he's just shocked. It was more of a fight or flight reflex.
It's gotta be.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting one also, because whatever assumption you have about speed, you gotta realize he has time for leisure on this flight.
It is cookies and milk.
It is not just work. He has time for leisure on this flight, so we do have to think about that when it comes to speed. But as we've shown, like, that speed is possible. So, I mean, that's it's riveting.
Well, one thing I think that's clear, he's not doing this at every house. There is not time for him to kiss and tickle at every single house.
I don't think so. I don't know. I said maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But he just really liked the cookies at the house, but who knows?
Yep. And then one last article I wanted to point out. This is from 1823, so very early account. So a man, he puts his family to sleep Christmas Eve. The kids are tucked up into bed. He's getting ready for bed. But then he hears a noise and goes out. And he looks out the window and he says he sees but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer with a little old driver so lively and quick. I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came. So speed is definitely at play here. He goes on, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. So definitely the reindeer's on the roof. Down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back. His eyes how they twinkled. His dimples how merry. His cheeks were like roses. His nose like a cherry. And the beard on his chin was as white as snow. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. This is the classic.
I mean, this isn't up for debate. That is Santa Claus.
That is Santa Claus, for sure. This description fits literally nobody else. Yeah. And there's a little paragraph down here that I wanted to point out. Maybe I'm stretching on this one. Well, who knows? But I'll say it. And then when he's headed out, he says, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. So there is some sort of magical, supernatural phenomenon going on here. He touches his nose and he goes up the chimney. So he's physically being levitated. And this should be true regardless of the size of chimney, or maybe even existence of chimney. So this should be able to affect his size. And so we know he's capable of altering space-time in a way. Maybe it's limited. Maybe it's not quite as unlimited as I'm making it out to be, but this could play a factor in this whole flight.
And I want to pick apart this first-hand account too as well, because he says faster than an eagle. A golden eagle at full swoop downward in hunting can hit near 200 miles an hour. So our initial speed calculations, we know it's faster than 200, so we're already getting up there.
Yeah.
So we really have to think about that, and we know he's going that fast. And I really want to dive into here because we have some first-hand accounts from some National Defense pilots, right? National Guard pilots. And it's very understood, and this is official from the U.S. government, from NORAD, right? They're the ones who keep us safe from bombs, is that their current intelligence, from their radar reports, they do not believe Santa experiences space-time in the way we do. They believe it's limited. It's not like this overarching, godlike figure, but they believe he has limited experience or limited ways to change space-time, that he might be able to make his trip longer, as well as making things fit properly, so that can explain some of these minor inconsistencies that when kind of an uneducated reader initially runs upon, it's very easy to blow them off like this is impossible. But now we know that, from the physics side alone, it is possible. We've had things go this fast. We've had things go this far. The fuel we've covered. There's a whole very interesting biopic about it. We're really into it. But we also have to account that, is it possible for him, me and you, if we had Santa's technology to do it, it's marginal. Maybe. But we have to account for the fact that Santa is kind of a spiritual being as well, that he might have some limited space-time abilities that, at least as we know, humans don't have. I don't know what the government has, but as far as we know, we don't have. So with that in count, I mean, I was pretty sold.
Yeah, same. So yeah, I went into this, like I said, being like your classic Santa denier. Like, of course I know Santa's real, but there's no way he was doing this flight. And I come out the other side, a full flighter to my core. Oh,
I'm a full Santa apologist. And like, as I said, I was able to just do work and stuff, talk to some fighter pilots. There's been many intercepts. I did not know this. If you look online, there are many pictures of radar locks on Santa, full on. There's no question who it is. And that's just, I'm in it. If you want rid for yourself, you can call 1-877-HIGH-NORAD during the Christmas time, and you can talk directly to a NORAD radar. I'm dead serious. Directly to a radar NORAD operator, and they will tell you the current radar lock of Santa, so you can get that up-to-date information.
We will definitely be following that.
Yeah, it's really riveting, and just kind of a little fun fact. Santa was actually issued a pilot's license in 1927.
Really?
He has, it's not unclear, I think for some national security reasons, like he's not in the database as much, and obviously I don't know what his logbook's looking like, but one can only assume it's quite, a lot of IMC, a lot of nighttime. It's probably a pretty good logbook.
Yeah, for sure. Did the FAA issue that license?
This was before the CAA. This is like, like the Tailorcraft is technically under the CAA. It was what was it? Like CAA was Civil Aircraft Authority, was under that guys, which was grandfathered in. So he does have a current, at this point, he's probably like ATP, everything certified. So,
next year we should get into his logbook a little bit.
Yeah. I'm going to try to see if I can pull some strings at work and see if I can get maybe my hands on a few entries.
Yeah, that'd be great. But don't take our word for all of this. Do your own research. We'll post links to the firsthand accounts and the NORAD resources that Matthew is using. But like any good pilot, you should be able to take in all the available information and draw a conclusion. And if that information changes, you should be able to change your mind. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, it was a really eye-opening experience. It was just to see what's possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. You want to land the sleigh here?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Ho, ho, ho!